and looked at those twin parables there, and we had finished those up, but that didn't finish the chapter, because there is verses 34 and 35 there. And while that's two verses, there's some valuable things I want us to see and get out of those two verses. Give me some room to walk around here. So this is Luke 14, beginning in verse 34. Therefore, salt is good, but if even salt has become tasteless, with what will it be seasoned? It is useless either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So, simple question to start out. How was salt used in Jesus' day?
As a preservative.
Okay. It was mainly a preservative since they didn't have refrigerators and other modern techniques. It
Another thing too is when the camels, when they carried them, they would carry slabs of salt, and the salt was worth more than gold and silver.
salt was very valuable. Fine.
They paid Roman soldiers in.
Yeah, that's where we get the expression worth of salt from, because that was how they paid Roman soldiers. Does salt become tasteless?
Too big.
You know why you haven't seen it? Because you have modern salt. So, and that does confuse people sometimes not familiar with the culture, because the other purpose of salt is for seasoning, and our salt doesn't go bad, if you will. But their salt did not have the purity that our salt has. And in Jesus' area, where would the salt come from? Yeah, yeah. The picture is supposed to be a hint, guys. They that is a picture of the Dead Sea. They uh they got their salt from the Dead Sea, and it had a lot of impurities in it, especially gypsum, but it had other things as well. So after time, it could go bad. It could lose its taste. And if your salt lost its taste,
It was useless.
it's completely useless, because it can no longer preserve, it can no longer give taste. So you just threw it out. So who does the salt represent?
Christian.
Okay.
Us. Me.
It represents us as Christians in that context. Remember, in that context, he's talking to those disciples, the same ones that he'd been talking to about what? What's the context? He was just talking about counting the cost of discipleship. This is basically the epilogue to counting the cost of discipleship. So when you look at verse 35a there, where he says it is useless either for the soul or for the manure pile, what's the significance?
That it's totally worthless.
Oh, the word useless is very important.
Who's useless?
The one who sits and does nothing.
Just stay in context. It's real easy. Disciples who don't count the cost are useless. Because if you won't sacrifice, remember how if you won't sacrifice, and that's the significance of the last part, it'll be thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. If you won't sacrifice, then you are useless to the Lord. And again, this is the epilogue of counting the discipleship. You go back to verse 33, the last verse before what we read tonight. So then, none of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions. So we talked about that attitude of sacrifice and willingness to sacrifice whatever it takes. whatever it costs to follow Jesus. If we're not willing to sacrifice that, we are like that tasteless salt. Monty?
First I looked up the word tasteless in the Greek. Very interesting word. Mora eno, where we get our word moron from. And so Jesus is saying, whenever we don't act like salt, we're playing the fool for it.
So when Debbie gets on to me for using the word idiot, it's actually scriptural
That's right.
in the sense that I'm using that idiot, moron. But you think about it, that's the strength of what Jesus is saying in that context. And that is why, of course, that what we read tonight began with therefore. So it makes it very easy not to miss his meaning. I'm going to hit that a lot tonight, Rocky, because you and Twain's favorite commentator, I'm going to have to say some things about tonight. I'm sorry. All right. Let's look then at chapter 15. And although it's easy to put verses 1 and 2 in as part of the lost sheet, it's really the introduction to the entire chapter. So all four parables that are in this chapter, this serves as the introduction to them. So it's super important in this chapter to stay in context and to not forget verses 1 and 2, even when you're later in the chapter and in different narratives there. So now all the tax collectors and the sinners were coming near him to listen to him. Both the Pharisees and the scribes began to grumble, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So, what is the scene pictured in verse 1?
Somebody's not happy with Jesus.
That's verse 2.
Where's he going? Oh,
He was with the tax collectors and sinners. They were all coming near him.
What is he doing though?
He's teaching them. He's eating with them.
Let's look at verse 1 and then we'll get this part right. What is he actually doing? He's teaching them. And then when you go ahead and you look at verse 2 and you see their complaint, what's the genesis of the complaint?
That he's eating with sinners.
How was he associating with?
He was wealthy.
By eating and speaking to them. Table fell.
Eating with them.
see, come down.
That is the highest form of fellowship in that culture. Yeah. That's what they called table fellowship. And table fellowship indicated acceptance. So it's not just the fact that he's with them. That's wrong in their eyes. But what is it extremely upsetting to them and wrong is the fact that he even goes so far as to have table fellowship with them. Why did I put I didn't put that question up yet. Why do they draw near to him? That was the teaching one to bring you out on that. So what I was going to ask is why did I put draw near in quotation marks?
Because they were coming near him.
What are sinners supposed to do?
Come to him.
Sinners are supposed to be drawn to Jesus. What do sinners that come to Jesus receive?
Forgiveness. Sometimes. Well,
Say it again, Ed.
forgiveness.
Forgiveness. You will not get the deeper meaning of the entire chapter if you miss the fact that the real issue is that these people that the Pharisees and scribes consider to be the lowest people in their society and unworthy of their attention, their time, or their concern. They're considered to be the worst sinners, are coming to Jesus, indicating repentance. And he is extending table fellowship to them, indicating forgiveness. Are they forgiving these people? No. See, so there is your problem. Of course, puts us in mind in James chapter 5, rather 4 and verse 8. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. This is how you come to God. You come, you hear his teaching, you respond, and he grants forgiveness. So they're very upset by all of these things here. I put two statements in here just because I wanted to try and sum these two verses up good before we get into the parables. The inclusion of Israel's rejected people in the kingdom of God is made concretely visible when Jesus receives them in table fellowship. You can argue when crowds are gathering and listening to him whether he's having fellowship with them or not. Do you see that? But when you can see him sitting down to dinner with them, there is no question about the fellowship. He is extending fellowship to them.
That was one of the criticisms of Peter with Cornelius. They said, "Well, he's eating with,"
Yeah.
you know.
Can't do that. Cannot do that. In Cornelius' case, though, it was the Gentiles. And then the other summary statement I put here, in his association with the people beyond the boundaries of respectability. That's what we're talking about. In their culture, these people were completely disrespected by the religious elite. So, people beyond the boundaries of respectability, Jesus flew in the face of all their convictions. So, he's just shattering their preconceived notions. Now, how would the Pharisees and the scribes, well, if you had said to them, hey, you shouldn't be that way toward these people, what basis would they have given you? That's important to understand too. So you got to think about that for now. Possessed by evil? Possessed may be too strong a word there, but you have the right thought there. The basis for all of this prejudice on their parts is that these people are sinners and we're not to fellowship with sinners. But they are taking that concept, of course, way too far and not having to do anything. That's mistake number one. They take this concept of not spending all your time with sinners because of guilt by association, basically, way too far, much farther than the Old Testament, because they would quote you Psalms 1, by the way. Blessed is the man doesn't stand and sit and walk. Uh, so they're taking it way too far. But what's the second mistake they make?
They think they're not sinners.
They think they're not sinners. So there's two major problems that Jesus gives this series. I mean, 4 straight parables on the subject. 2 different problems, related but different, that he's going to give these 4 series. So he's going to start, of course, with the one. These are the 4. I just thought we'd list them all before we go. And of course, Lord willing, Sunday we'll have the lost older brother. So there you go, 20. All right, so the lost sheep is in verses 3 through 7. There is one thing that I want to take 3 minutes and mention first. And that's a did you know? before we got too deep, since all four of them are so closely related, and before we got too deep, there was an excellent teaching point here for a different problem. And that is the problem that I have mentioned from time to time, especially in this class, uh, that people think if you use the same image, it's always the same scene. That's one error. And then, even more commonly, people think if you use the same image, it always has to be interpreted the same way. It has to mean the same thing. Did you know that Matthew gives this same parable? This is Matthew chapter 18. What do you think? If any man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go and search for the one that is strayed? If it turns out that he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 which had not gone astray. So it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones perish. So it's the same parable, but the ending is different. The ending is different because the audience is different, and the point Jesus is making is different. There, he is talking to his disciples. Here, he's addressing these Pharisees and the scribes. But there, he's talking to his disciples, and the subject is their attitude toward little ones. If you remember the context there in Matthew chapter 18. And so he's trying to get them to understand that not everyone's as strong as you, not everyone's as knowledgeable as you, etc. That does not excuse you, but instead just makes it more important that you make the effort to help the weaker. That's Matthew 18. So it's the same parable, almost word for word, but it's not the same occasion and it's not the same point. So don't fall for those lies. All right, let's look at it here in Luke 15. So he told them this parable, saying, what man among you, if he has 100 sheep and has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open pasture and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? When he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I tell you that in the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who needs no repentance. Now, I've read the whole thing not because I'm not going to take you all the way through it, but because you have to see the thing as a whole to answer the questions, basically, because of the relationship. So, who does the shepherd represent?
Jesus.
Jesus. Why did Jesus come to earth?
To shepherd us.
He can save the lost. This is a perfect illustration. Literally, I mean, what's the name of this class? Life.
Life of
They need to go look at your new thumbnail on YouTube and see that beautifully illustrated, I might add. But Jesus's life is God's quest for the straying sinner. That's what Jesus' life is. That's why he said the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. So in this parable, because you're going to see differences in the parable as he tries to bring out different things. In this parable, the shepherd is Jesus himself. Who are the 99?
His flock. His flock.
They're the Christians. Christians already saved.
Let's stay in context. Let's try that. Let's just try it and see what that would be like. Who did he address this to? See if you get who he addressed it, then you don't get this one wrong. This is not addressed to his disciples. This is addressed to the scribes and Pharisees because they get upset about him having table fellowship. with these sinners, these tax collectors and sinners. All right. So the 99 are the Pharisees and the scribes. I'm trying to think how I want to say the next part. There are applications, and we're going to make them all the way through, but we're going to make them after we've made the textual applications. The reason why I'm going to get on the coffin, guys, is that he allegorizes like nobody's business in this chapter. I mean, it's insane. You might as well be Augustine or something. Yeah. Drove me. I made the mistake of reading it again. I shouldn't have because I knew what he did there, but I made a mistake of reading it again. It drove me crazy. So we don't want to allegorize anything to start with. We want to take it just what Jesus is saying, the point he is trying to make then and there. And the point he is trying to make then and there is being made in this parable to the scribes and the Pharisees. Now, that leads to the next question. Are they really the saved ones? No. And he's going to address that, but not in this parable. See, that's why there's a whole chapter of them here. So here he's just using their presupposition that they are the righteous, the holy, because he's building arguments from the lesser to the greater. Yeah. Standard logical practice. So this argument is the least of these arguments, the first two. But they build on one another. So then who is the one lost sheep? Obviously, that's the sinners. Yeah. So that is a disciple who has gone astray. This is a little trickier. And I put wilderness because the older versions have wilderness. At least the New American Standard kind of translates the purpose for you. I'm still not sure I like what they did because in the Greek it's literally wilderness. No.
So, are you labeling the 99 as disciples?
Not here. The 99 he's speaking to are those scribes and Pharisees.
What's a disciple on stretch?
Right. Right. They're all the physical Israel. And in their mind, that part of physical Israel is lost because they're such terrible sinners, unlike themselves. So they would tell you that's a wayward sheep. Yeah. Just like we can make the applications to ourselves. So what is the wilderness? Fields. The reason why I make this point is just because if you're reading one of the versions that has wilderness, even though that's a good translation as far as matching the original word, it loses its meaning because if you think of a sheep in a wilderness, what do you think? He's in trouble. He's in a bad place. It's not that. The New American Standard, I don't know if you noticed when I read it, but it says the open pastures, I think it says the open pastures, open fields, something like that. And that's because that is the concept. The wilderness was where they normally let the sheep graze. But this is one that does not make it back when they have the nightly gathering like we described in some of our early lessons from this culture. So when they come in every night, you count on one's missing. All right. So what did Christ accomplish with that opening in verse 4?
Something that they would do.
He directly involved each one of them. So he says, which man of you? So that nobody listening at that point, you see, it is not picturing themselves as the shepherd. So he says to these scribes and Pharisees, you got a flock, you got 100 people. Is there any significance to 100 sheep?
Them,
I don't think there's any special. Notice I said I don't think. I don't think there's any special significance to 100. I also actually even think he used it because it's a nice round number. It's easy to think about and get and deal with percentages from, right? If you've got 100 and you lose one, what have you lost?
90,
You've lost 1%. Are you sure you're a teacher?
PE.
Okay, P, that's right. Yeah, you've lost 1%. You still got 99%. So that brings up my next question. How does the shepherd feel about the one sheep?
He's concerned.
The shepherd is upset. Distraught is a great word. Concerned's a great word. Uh, obviously he cares about this one sheep. See, if you look at it as a mathematical equation and you say he's lost 1%, yeah. But that's not the way a shepherd would look at it. And they know that. That's not the way they would look at it if one of their 100 went missing. I thought about some of the, I won't say idiotic because we said that. I'll say moronic. No, I can't say that either, can I? Even if it's scriptural. Some of the things I've heard people say through the years in some tragic situations. Someone has 4 children and they lose one. And you'll hear somebody say, well, at least they still have 3. Yes, that's exactly what that parent is feeling, right? No, it's not about the 3 remaining, it's about the one that's no longer there. And the shepherd is the same way. It's not about the fact that I still have 99% out of the 100 I started with. It's that I have one sheep, and that sheep is in great danger. He's out there in the dark with the wild animals. He's lost. One of the good things Kaufman talks about is about how sheep don't find their way home. Yeah, if you get a lost sheep, he's not turning up. It's not a dog. There are a lot of animals that could find their way home. You might have some hope of seeing them again. A sheep is not. You've got to go get that sheep or it's lost. And so the shepherd won't write it off. Even a bad shepherd won't write it off. He's going to go look for and search for that one sheep. How long is he going to search?
Till he finds it.
Ah, did you notice that? That's a key point in this parable. When does God give up?
Never.
He's always wanting his children to come back home. He always continues to make that effort to come back home. So, what does he do when he finds it?
He rejoices.
What's the first thing he does? That's how I should have wrote it. Y'all have answered the second. He put it on his shoulders. Why did he do that? That sheep has been terrified for however long it's been in this situation. It's exhausted, it's scared, and it doesn't know the way home like we just talked about. So he is actually going to physically carry that sheep. And that's a big part of the parable. So that's when he gets home, when we see all the emotions, who does he call together? All his friends, his neighbors. So why is that part of the story?
They would know about the
Moment of celebration.
Okay, it's all about the celebration. So, and in all of these, it's all about. Go ahead and give you the one of the last answers to all 4. It's all well, the 3 of the 4. It's all about the celebration, and so there's going to be that big party.
Yeah.
And it's not even just the shepherd You see, that's a key part of this story and the others. That it's not just the shepherd that rejoices. Notice what Jesus says in verse 7. There's that kind of rejoicing in heaven, God and the angels. So all of the Godhead, the Father, Son, and the Spirit, all of the angels, every occupant of heaven rejoices over this event. So, what then is the point of the parable?
The importance of one person.
Okay, that the value of one person
And I think
to
when
God.
Jesus said that, what is it if you gain the whole world, lose your soul? It shows us how important every person is.
Okay, what's the thrust of the parable? Of? All you got to do again is go back to your context. Who's he talking to?
This Pharisees and
The scribes.
He has to contrast those, if the 99 are the scribes and the Pharisees, then in verse 7, when he says, he says, there shall be joy in heaven over one sinner that repented more than over 99 just persons. He's got to be contrasting just persons with those 99, because those 99 were not just persons.
And the 99, what? You're right on the edge of it. It's all part of it. The 99, what emotion are they experiencing at this time?
nothing.
That's not true.
They're mad at people.
They're mad.
Because he's
They're angry. They're upset. And so Jesus tells us the first parable and ends with this great party in heaven so that they will recognize that they are mad and upset over what God throws a party of. That's the contrast. And so you miss all that if you don't stay in the context all the way through it.
That takes us to the older brother.
That's why we go all the way to the older brother. And in the older brother, he's going to make a lot of things clear that are not as clear here because he's addressing this all at one time. It's all one audience. I know y'all can't think an audience can take 4 parables, but Jesus did. And he is building from the lesser to the greater. And by the time he gets to the older brother, it is very clear where the problem is and who the sinner really is. So that's the point of the neighborhood. I put in my notes, they are dour and resentful about what makes God happy. Point.
I find it interesting that the shepherd leaves the 99 in the open pastures. Now, me being me, I would go and try and find another shepherd and say, you watch my guys, or gather them up into a walled in area to, give them some protection. But I guess he feels like I'm in a hurry. I gotta go. I gotta find this.
Yeah, there is the urgency. There's also the sense that the flock together is not lost. They're going to stay together. Doesn't because when we get to preaching out of this parable, things like what Nona was talking about at the beginning, and one of Rocky's allusions in there, those are all great points you can make out of the parable. But that is preaching out of the parable versus understanding the context of the parable, what Jesus is actually saying. So I think I put it in here. Yeah. 2 questions, for example, to understand how you turn into preaching. How is the sheep lost? The flock didn't get together and say, "Hey, let's all go hide from Joe." You know, the sheep gets lost due to its own carelessness, its own choices. Maybe as he's following along, suddenly he sees an interesting looking plant over there. He thinks maybe he can eat or something, and he goes over there. And then maybe something startles him over there, and he goes this way. And before he knows it, he's completely cut off. What kind of lessons can you draw from that?
Be careful what ties.
You can fall someplace.
If you then come in and you can apply this to the church, you can make all kinds of lessons. Number one, what is the importance of fellowship?
Building up the other.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone that was at Betty's the other night is not stronger than they were before that event. Not closer to their fellowships. Yeah, well, some of us, yes, but we won't go there. You know, those of you who make the effort to be at Bible classes, you know, all these things, uh, the importance of staying with the flock and of associating with each other and being together and the recognition as an individual that hey, it's my responsibility to stay with the flock. That's supposed to be my first choice, right? So these flashy things that come up on the side, I don't turn aside to go after them because if I do, I'm liable to get further and further away until I don't know which way to go. Okay.
In being with the group, I have said this to some people in the congregation that I am happy that you're here today because you have encouraged me by being here. So you've helped me become stronger in my Christianity. So we need each other.
And if we're not here, we don't get that. We don't affect others that way. All right, let's look at the next one because again, he's just going along. Of course, this one is the lost coin. And you see how he begins, or what? So you see the relationship of the parables. Or what woman, if she has 10 silver coins, you know why I always like this one, by the way, right? Who who did that first parable reach as far as the audience?
The men,
The men, because they're shepherds, you see. So he tells a light parable to make sure the women are not left out of this teaching. Or what woman, if she has 10 silver coins and loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and search carefully until she finds it? Once she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the coin which I had lost. In the same way, I tell you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. So let's take it easy. What is it that is lost?
a coin,
A coin.
a silver coin.
It's
10 drachmas.
it wasn't worth as much then as it is today.
10
That-
drachmas.
Well, the one coin is one drachma. What did the drachma represent?
A day's wage.
A day's wage. So she has 10 coins representing 10 days' wages in that. Okay. How is that one lost? See, I'm going to ask you these questions a little earlier now, since you should be in the flow of it from the first one. What do you know is who, or let me say, who do you know is not at fault here?
The coin.
The coin cannot be at fault here. See, it's different from the sheep. The sheep is so a coin gets lost through carelessness. So understand that. How does she know she has lost them?
Because she counted.
Just like the shepherd, she had to count them up on a regular basis. So one time she goes to count them, probably every night, Eddie. But one night she goes to count them, and she has 9 instead of 10. So she says, "Well, I still have 90%. No, no. It's 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 easy. In fact, I read somebody talked about at the time this was about 25 cents compared us. That's that's looking at it again in the weight versus the value in the culture. The value was a day's wage. So, if I lost a day's wage, I'm not too happy about that. Yeah. Uh, so we understand that she takes the care to count out, but at some point in the day, whether she knocked the table where they were or whatever happened, she's lost one. So what is the first action she takes?
She lights a lamp.
Brightens the house. She lights her lamp so she can see. And then what does she do?
Sweeps the house and searches.
Sweeps the house. What would be involved in sweeping that? This was the best way I could think of to say this without just telling you. And I didn't want to just tell you because I don't want y'all to get lazy.
She have to move stuff. Possibly.
Got to move stuff because you can't leave. You can't not sweep under a table or anything, or you can't miss where a basket is and it might have rolled under there. What else?
Pay for
Okay.
Diligently looking.
Diligently, that's the word that's used in the text. There's a cultural thing you're still not discovering here. What kind of floor do we have?
They have dirt floors.
She's got a dirt floor. In that area, she's got a clay dirt floor. Now, in a dirt floor like that, if I lose a coin right here, what are my odds of finding it just looking?
100%.
Pretty good. It's going to stand out. That's not going to happen on that dirt floor. So when she's sweeping, and you can see her when it doesn't turn up, sweeping again, pressing harder this time because you're removing layers when you do that. So there's a lot of work that's involved in this, that's going to be involved in this, but she's going to find it. So once found, what is she going to do?
She'll rejoice.
She rejoices. Tells her neighbors.
She's going to call her friends and neighbors, and there's going to be joy, you see? So those are the emotions that are involved. How would you apply this one to the church? Because, see, again, the point here in the text is that the scribes and Pharisees are not rejoicing. Instead, they're grumbling, and they should be rejoicing if they actually do belong to God. If they're part of God's flock, then they will do what heaven does.
This whole thing about this, it's we do rejoice when someone gets forward. Go forward, get around.
It's very important to celebrate the victories. It's always important. So, how else would you apply it to the church?
There's work involved.
We have to be out there.
It's going to take work. Talking about it will not get it done. Planning to do it will not get it done. It's going to take actual work. Remember what we saw in the prodigal was that after he made his resolution, you had to get up and actually do it, And so again, you see the progression. But uh, this is where Kaufman really goes crazy with his allegorizing. Most of it I don't mind as long if he'd done it better to you know to say I'm using this context to set this up basically, but he teaches it like this is Jesus's intent, and this is not Jesus's intent here. Jesus's intent here is for them to understand that to have any emotion other than joy when someone who's lost is found means something is wrong with you.
And also the thing you need to understand here is that we don't know how long she was sweeping that floor. we don't know.
Or how many times you went and put further pressure?
Right, so in comparison to the church, sometimes we have to sweep a little bit longer in order to uncover
When did the shepherd give up?
when he found it.
When he found it. Yeah. So we don't see her giving up either. So lots of things. Uh, I have a sermon that Kaufman's commentary actually inspired in me about 20 years ago. That's called "For Who Were Lost" because that's the chapter. Uh, but when you do a sermon like that, you know, you understand that you're focusing on making specific applications to the church and not so much on exactly what the point there is. Kaufman's whole deal where he first goes sideways here is because he won't see the woman as being God. Do you want to guess why he won't see the woman as being God?
Because she's a woman.
You radical.
No, I'm not.
Trying to play the gender card.
Mm,
Because the implication is the coin could not have been lost on its own, unlike the sheep. He goes to the point, well, then therefore the woman cannot be God because that's to say God is careless with souls. And that is what you call taking a parable way too far. And if you're in context, you should never mention it. The seeker is God in every story. You know, the only difference is that it is specifically Jesus in the first one. But the seeker is God in every story. It's just that the coins becoming lost is not one of the points of the parable here. The point of the parable is that it is lost, not how it became lost. You see. And that's why I said in the first one, if you start talking what you can and should probably about how and why that sheep got lost, that's not the point of the parable. The point of the parable is it is lost. So that's why I said, how would you apply it to the church? And then here, how would you apply it to the church? But the excellent point that Kaufman makes under that allegory is that a lot of people are lost because of the carelessness of the church. And that's a lesson we shouldn't miss.
carelessness.
The carelessness of the church. Sometimes we are not diligent in going after those that we don't see. You know,
It's like Rob Whitaker said in the video, we need to close the back door.
so that there's important. I love that sermon. I've done that sermon probably 6, 7 different places through the years. So I often put it in a meeting. But you're getting away. The part where he goes terribly crazy for you two, I know have read him, is when he starts talking about the coin and breaking the coin down and the image on the coin and the silver and you know none of that is the point of the story at all, you know. But like I said, allegory is all right. We got 3 minutes. Let's zip through how this applies to what we studied Sunday morning in worship in the prodigal son. We've already talked about one way, but what are some other ways that you're building here as you go through?
There's an individual who is lost.
You get a human individual in this story. So you're elevating what's lost. First, it's a sheep, then it's a day's wage to someone who has very little. Yeah. Uh, and then it's a man. You see. The first story helps them see, as we've already seen in several encounters with Jesus with them, that they value a man, an animal more than a man, because they would go get their sheep, but that they wouldn't try and reach out to these members, outcast members of the society. Right?
Verse 4, what man of you? Verse 8, one woman. And then, verse 11 talks about two sons, and one's a son, man, woman, son, you know, progression.
And here in the prodigal, we did get exactly how he was lost. We do see him making those choices we talked about Sunday that led him into a far country and bankrupted him in that country and found him in a pigsty wanting to eat their food. So you see, he elevated it, he elevated it, he elevated it. The end of the prodigal son's part of that story that we finished with Sunday is what? It's the big party, it's the big celebration. Apparently, I didn't put it on screen. I thought I did. Oh well. Uh, but if you look at it, you'll see those same things. We are out of time tonight, so I encourage you to think about go through, read all four parables again, because we'll have the older brother Sunday morning, Lord willing. Uh, but think about how they're building, how they become more involved, how they can become more condemning of the scribes and Pharisees. And then think about the applications for us today in the church. All right, class dismissed.
Lance, how do you turn it off? Just that.